All right, welcome to this restful Sunday live stream. I hope that everyone is okay. I don't think that anyone is in the live stream at the moment, but that's all good. We'll just see whenever people join, they'll join. I am extremely tired today because it's been 2 days of straight editing. First with mine and Simon's collaborative efforts, and the second being with Simp Warfare. I just want to personally thank Simon and also Shmariana Shmande on Twitter for helping me with those videos, be that through collecting research or actually participating or creating thumbnails. I really, really appreciate it, and I definitely think that you guys should go and follow him, subscribe to him. They're wonderful people and they're just great times. They're just fun times. Welcome Ahmed09, welcome Paul. Thank you for telling me I look beautiful tired. I am personally, I'm quite exhausted, and this is why I kind of keep these live streams for Sunday, because it is kind of like a restful thing to do where I just sit here and I read some stories. So I'm not entirely sure how many people are in the live stream right now, but for those of you who might be new, I know I've had a pretty steady stream of subscribers over as of late, probably because of Abdullah Samir's live stream with me. I just want to notify and let you guys know what this live stream is about. I look through some of my old work and I read it out. I used to do a lot of creative writing. I used to do a lot of story writing, poetry writing, and that's what these Sunday live streams are about. That's what I typically do. So if that's not for you, I'll see you another time, most likely. But that's what we're doing today. We're just having a chill, relaxed Sunday live stream where I just read out some of my old work. I will, I think, wait for a few more people to pile in, but how is everybody? Do you have any questions, any comments, complaints, concerns? Let me know. How is everybody doing in isolation? I hope you're doing well. I hope that things are good with you. Thankfully, I'm managing quite well. I haven't seen sunlight in a very, very long time, so I might go for a walk today. I might go to the park or something like that. But we'll see. How is everyone else doing? Please feel free to leave your comments in the live chat. And please do also remember to like, remember to share wherever. Remember to, leave your comments and everything else in the live chat. Hi, Mike the Random Guy. How are you? Welcome to the live chat. I'm just waiting for a few more people to gather together because I know I never schedule my live streams and they just happen whenever. So this is kind of the downside, is just waiting for people. Also, I saw Sir David Attenborough trending on Twitter and I had an actual panic attack about it. Okay, Twitter needs to notify us when like these certain personalities are okay. David Attenborough is quite old, and I was extremely concerned. I love David Attenborough, watch all of his documentaries. He's a wonderful human being, and I kind of really freaked out. But yeah, it's slowly going down in the trending tab, so there's that. Paul says not much to do here in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I can see that. Anyways, in terms of Fork Road, we have gotten to chapter 13. We didn't get to go through a lot of chapters last time because the chapters from here on get quite long. So I hope you're ready to dig in. I hope you're ready to dive in. Grab a blanket, grab some tea, grab some, whatever you need. Get comfortable because we're just going to be reading some stories. Mike the Random Guy says, I'm doing perfectly fine. It's a dream time for me. That's good. A lot of people like myself, I haven't had a hug in such a long time. It just feels very very frustrating for me, not because I'm a very tactile person. So Ilkin Aliyev, welcome to the live stream. I don't think I've seen you in any of my live streams before, so I will briefly explain again that we are going to be looking into some of my old creative work, that we're not going to do anything too serious. We're going to just sit back and have some fun, and that's it. I used to do writing. I call myself a writer, even though I'm not technically hardcover published. But I am looking to be in future, so that's what we're doing. So grab a cup of tea, grab some blankets, and just relax. We are 13 chapters in, so if you don't mind, um, you know, listening to a story 13 chapters in, stick around. But we have had other episodes, and I should probably put this in a playlist afterwards. We have had other episodes from chapter one, if you want to go and check them out later, or if you want to go and check them out now. So yeah. um Anyway, we're gonna dive into chapter 13. Just let me know if the voice is sounding good, like if the sound quality is good. I'm not streaming from my phone because it has a habit of dying very, very quickly. But if the sound quality is better here or just marginally good, I might just switch to this, and also I can keep an eye on the live chat a lot easier like this. So let me know. Thank you, Ilkin. Moving on. So chapter 13. The fire crackled and popped. Bradley Wood was quiet as death, watching on with nothing but eerie omniscience. Lisa watched from the door of the van as the fire burnt. There was a morbidity on her face that Amanda had never seen before, a silence so still that Amanda had to wonder if she'd said and done the right things. When she looked at Lisa now, she recalled the dread that had befallen her when Dan left her life. When he had left her life entirely, she wanted to feel bad. She wanted to feel disdain for herself, reproach her actions, and take back the words that had come from her face so smoothly, but she didn't. Amanda didn't feel anything. A numbness, an agonizing numbness, was all Dan had left her. She had spoken sharp and true. There was no taking that back. She stared at the flames lapping before her, I think it's meant to say, lapping at the oxygen with its hungry orange and red tongue, devouring the frail corpse that Amanda fed it. There was no smell in the air, of burning flesh, for example, only thin trails of dark smoke that they all avoided inhaling. Han was dumbstruck. He hadn't the faintest idea what to say, or how to say it. He was so frozen that even when his daughter called, he checked the screen of his phone and didn't think before he brushed the glinting green telephone on screen into the red one. And Lisa, she just watched, occasionally wiping an uncontrolled tear from her eyes. She sniffed and gasped, her breath slow and uneven. She opened her mouth from time to time, intelligence filling her gaze, before she stopped herself and resumed her empty, heavy silence. Amanda fed the flame some more and poked at the wood at its base with a stick, sparked ashes flying off into the air, burning bright before falling away to the ground. Will no one say anything? She asked, without looking around. There was a long pause, as if some secret rule had been broken, but after that whisper of silent rebuke, Lisa spoke with a parched, dry voice. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Amanda responded, still intent on looking at the fire. Lisa swallowed nothing and said, anything. A sob escaped her lips. I don't understand anything. Amanda took a brief glance at Han, a fierce look. Tackle one thing at a time, she told Lisa. What do you want to know? What? Lisa started, shaking away a sudden tension that grasped her. What is it? She trembled, as if the burning thing would rise up and stretch its jowls around her head once more. Amanda nodded, finally taking a good look at Lisa. He, she said, he was a person who loved and lived, a man of small means with big dreams. Is he a nihilist? Lisa asked. No, Amanda said. As powerful as Nile is, a nihilist could never do what this thing did to you. Then what is he? Lisa demanded, her voice low and tense. It, Amanda told her, it was a vessel, her plaything. It walked with her will, it walked with her inspiration, but only in cover of darkness. Why did you throw me at it? Lisa sobbed. She felt to her knees in tears, shaking like she'd never shaken in her life. Why did you push me towards it? Let it touch me. She felt her scalp for the pinpricked indents that the thing had made with its teeth. It could have killed me. I'm sorry. You're sorry, Lisa spat. That's all you have to say. You're sorry. She turned away and squeezed the tears out of her eyes. I thought I could trust you. You don't understand, Amanda told her, keeping a calm face, watching Lisa's every move. I saved you. I saved us both. You saved us? Lisa cried, astonished by what she was hearing. You shot it in the face. You could have just as easily have shot me. If I wanted to, I would have, Amanda pointed out. Lisa grabbed her own hair in a bunch and pulled it in frustration. You bitch, she screamed. I thought you were my friend, but you threw me at that fucking monster. I couldn't have shot it, Amanda said. I couldn't have shot it until it touched one of us. What are you talking about? It's a dead creature of an untouchable thing. How do you kill something that's already dead? How do you touch something that can't be touched? Amanda barked at Lisa. She fed the flames the last piece of the apparition and watched it burn away. All remained silent until it was nothing more than ash in the hungry flames. Amanda got to her feet. We're here now, she said, looking from Han to Lisa. Why don't the two of you find somewhere warm and maybe even happy to rest? Han approached Amanda. Amanda, what's going on? Amanda gave him a measured look. What did you expect to find here, Han? I expected to find lunatics, and I expected to find fanatics, Han told her, kicking the ashes in the flame. Not men with empty skulls as brittle as clay. I warned you. You didn't listen, Amanda said, looking away for a flitting moment at the sky, before returning her gaze to Han. No one did. Not you, not Briar, not Shavi, and Talbot told me I was more likely to die of a mental breakdown. But we're here now. We're here now. She sidled closer to him and whispered the words, You had better start taking my world, Dan's world, seriously, or you'll end up a dead man walking with a dead skull. She squatted and took dirt in her hands and poured it over the flames to quench its hunger. She rose again and told Han to move the van to somewhere more public and insisted that he and Lisa find somewhere more comfortable to stay. And what will you be doing? Han insisted. I'll be looking for a strange man, she told him. A strange man who sees ravens and reads the signs and accepts them as truths despite his mind constantly refusing to. What does that even mean? Han asked her, his frustration billowing from his mouth in steam as he sighed into the cold air. Amanda slapped his arm and forced a half smile. Find a place to stay and open your mind, Han, she told him. I'll find you as soon as I've done business with this poor gentleman. She left them, traipsing through the trees without looking back. The forest was natural, untouched within by human designs. The dead leaves underfoot crunched as Amanda passed through at a steady pace, refusing to rush, refusing to run. The cold air billowed at points, swerving through trees to chill her skin and tamper with her short hair. She paused and took in the breeze, shivering only slightly at how cold her lungs went. I know you're here, she mumbled. I know you're here. The forest gave no reply. Why would you send someone, that thing you overwhelmed, when you have all this power here? Amanda asked it. A slow, icy bead of sweat poured down Amanda's temple as she stood there, dying to shrivel in her fear and awe, but refusing with every grain in her soul. There was an energy here that she couldn't deny, a force so weakening she almost wanted to fall to her knees. It made her feel nauseated, dizzy, and fearful. She was afraid. Above all things, Amanda was afraid. All this power, Amanda repeated. I can feel it. You know I can. Still, the forest gave no reply, somnolent as it was. You summoned one apparition, Amanda whispered to the wood. You gave us a little scare, drew a bit of blood. That doesn't make you a conqueror. She looked up at the small openings in the canopy above. We're not giving up just yet. Amanda was swept off her feet. It surprised her, the way she flew a few centimeters in the air before her back hit the broad trunk of a tree. Her entire body seized like a malfunctioning robot. Froth burbled from her lips as her tongue lolled. You will succumb. The voice seared into her mind like a brand, melting her brains. She bunched the twitching fingers of her right hand into a fist and punched herself full in the face. For a second, she felt herself take a conscious breath. She felt the pain in her back and the fresh ache in her face. I'll die before I do that, she screamed into the wood. She lightly pounded her leg with her fist. In an attempt to keep her wits, she panted and rubbed the saliva and the blood from her mouth and nose. You're weak, Valfreya, she declared. You created one apparition from the body of a weak man, and the rest are just empty casks. You're weak, 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 Amanda spat on the forest floor. Nature ousts the weak. A chilling breeze swept the wood. Amanda stood through it, too shocked to register her digits go numb and feelingless. Several birds dropped to the ground from their nests, dead, unmoving. Amanda watched them. Oh, good, you killed some birds. Good for you. She forced herself to move and looked more closely at the birds that had dropped. Ravens. The breeze ceased as soon as it had begun. The warmth returned to Amanda slowly. She knelt down and noticed a trail of ravens. Like breadcrumbs, she mumbled, looking above her and following the dead birds. She kept going, not saying anything more to the wood, until the trail led out of the forest to a village. Each steadily built house had a smoking chimney, but few people walked the streets. The ones she passed gave her an odd look and hurried off away from her. She didn't know where to go from here. She could see the van parked next to one of the larger buildings and assumed that Lisa and Han were inside, staying warm and staying safe. I need to cough. I need to cough. I need to cough. Sorry. A black, quick movement in the sky caught Amanda's attention, and she noticed it perch on the ill-tiled roof of a house that had seen much time and very little care. Amanda instinctively moved towards the house, hands in her pockets of her coat. She passed through the front garden gate, squeaked as it opened, and crunched on the broken flooring up to the house. She stood in front of a door that was rotting from years of wear and knocked on it, half expecting the wood to break as she did. Leave me alone, a withered voice called from within, the confines of the decrepit home. Amanda didn't respond. She just knocked louder and harder. A growl. Leave, I said, the withered voice howled. Amanda sighed, her frustration thin and faint, but sharp and focused. She pounded once more on the door with her fist. I'm not leaving until you open up, old man, she barked. She heard rustling and stumbling, and finally a coarse curse hit her ears. The door was yanked open before her, and a strange, shrunken creature stood in its path. He was hunched over, thin with sharp bones poking out of his visible skin, the thick, metal-framed spectacles resting on that poor bridge of his nose, magnifying his very, very pale blue eyes, and tufts of white hair were spread unevenly all over his spotted scalp, and dark wisps of hair curls from his fragile jowls. He smelled like a man who often perfumed himself but rarely bathed. The clothing he wore was decades old, perhaps even more ancient than the elderly man himself, and hung from his skeletal body. He said nothing once he saw Amanda, despite his previous insistence for her to leave. They stared at each other silently, observing. The old man took a step back. Amanda half expected for his joints to creak with movement, like the rusty gate that guarded his front garden. His thin, dry lips almost crinkled as he pursed them. What do you want? He asked her, with a harshness that showed how suspicious he was, but there was also a softness that conveyed his curiosity. Amanda shrugged. I'm not sure yet, she told him. Who are you? His face crumpled with anger. Just an old man who wants some peace and quiet. Amanda looked at him. She blinked, as if to properly discern what she was looking at. There were images that filled her vision, Images that weren't there in reality as everyone understood it, but they came and disappeared in seconds, and she was unable to process or fully comprehend where she was and who she was with. "What is this place?" she whispered. The old man huffed. "It's my home, you silly girl." He put his bony hands on his hips. "What is this? Some kind of joke you young people like to play?" She looked at him. It was absurd, but she thought she kept seeing a pointed hat on the old man's head. "I'm not young," she said. "You're not old," the old man pointed out. As if the old man had welcomed her, Amanda stepped into the house. "I feel old, especially in this place," she told him. Looking around at the soiled carpets, musty with age, the newspapers that were littered everywhere, marked and highlighted and annotated in bright red ink. The old man folded his arms across his narrow torso and growled at her. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "You can't come strolling into my home, you young'uns and your shenanigans." Amanda turned back to him and looked at him intently. She didn't say anything for a long time. She was right. Though it wasn't really there, the old man was wearing a pointed hat. Amanda told him as much. The old man paused as well. "A pointed hat, you say?" he said, chuckling. "Are you touched in the head, young lady?" Amanda leaned back against a wall. "Some might say so," she replied, and looked away. "Most have said so." The old man grumbled, shutting the front door and giving her a hard look. "Bleeding gods!" he cursed. "They keep sending you morons to me." He pointed a thin finger at Amanda. "What do you want with me? How did you find me?" "The ravens in the forest. They led me," Amanda explained. "She killed them all. They dropped to the floor and led me here. There was one perched on your roof." The old man's face dropped and he scowled. "No one's been in that forest for months and been seen again. You come here and you tell me you managed to get through?" "I heard her," Amanda quaked with the words. "She's been trying to get to me for years. Keeps telling me I'll succumb." "And you, like the single-celled, cabbage-brained fool you are, came here," the old man scolded, waving his arms in the air. He must have very patient neighbors, Amanda's immediate thought. "I didn't want to," Amanda pressed. "I was pushed to. I warned them and they wouldn't listen." "Then you should have let them kill you where you stood." Amanda cocked her head to a side. "Would you have done that in my place?" "I'm not in your place," the old man chuckled. "And granted, I wouldn't have stood there and let them kill me, but it would have been the right thing to do." "Fuck your right and fuck your wrong," Amanda told him hotly. "I'm here now, and I think you know as well as I do the danger that poses." "Curious and hot-headed, just like your benefactor," the old man smiled. Amanda paused. "What do you mean?" "Woden's eye. He's given you his eye." The old man shook his head. Of course he'd given it to an irrevocably poor wielder. Amanda began to wonder if she was the more sane one in this conversation. "What are you talking about?" "The gods!" The old man slapped his head. "I'm talking about the gods, you insolent little girl. The gods that descended from the heavens to build and shape the world, to shape us from the dirt that we are. You know the story. You have the smell of a believer on you." The old man scowled. "And you are Woden's eye, the eye that he sacrificed to know what it was, what it was like to be blind, his gift to you, his knowledge, his sight, and his curiosity." "You have to be mistaken," Amanda said to him. "Oh," the old man said, smiling and creeping next to her. "Then you explain why it is that you and you alone can see the hat upon my head, hmm?" "It's my condition. It's how I've always been." "Precisely," the old man barked. "The gods do not walk among us any longer. They only manifest in us to prove their existence to us." "Except Valfreya," Amanda pointed out. "Except Valfreya," the old man agreed. "And she won't leave, not without a fight." Amanda let out a soft sigh. "I have questions," she told him. "We met a vessel." "We? I and my associates," was all she could say. The old man huffed. "Vessels are not uncommon, not for months now," he told her. "Like husks, aren't they? Beautiful and yet terrible." Not the husks, Amanda said, and let the words linger in the air, so that the old man took them in. I saw the husks in London, where they're being kept and examined. I was wondering where they'd all disappeared to, where all the stories went. We met a vessel that was lucid, moving and acting, Amanda continued. It attacked us on the way here. The old man stared at her. He turned away, walking slowly into a room that veered off from the corridor. It might have been a living room once, but there was, again, the musty smell of damp and decay, and there were stacks of soiled newspaper everywhere. The old man hobbled over to a single armchair and sat slowly. Like everything, it creaked as he sat. He was motionless and uncomfortable, but he didn't express anything. My throat is so dry from reading. I'm gonna take a quick break. What questions have you guys got for me? I'm just looking through the chat right now. If you have any questions or concerns. Uh, I'm just looking through the chat. Okay, I guess we'll continue. Um, I take it that this has never happened before, Amanda asked, leaning against the door frame and watching him. It has never happened before, the old man repeated. There have only been shells, husks, casks of empty, discarded people. Amanda swallowed. It tasted sick in her mouth, the words she was about to say, such that she croaked when she said it. I broke its skull. The old man turned his head towards her. You killed it. I shot it between the eyes as it tried to eat my friend, and it dropped dead, Amanda told him. And how did you know that that would work? A sob left Amanda. I didn't, she confessed. Sometimes I just do things without thinking, say things without meaning to. And why did you break its skull? I don't know, Amanda told him. I just felt like I had to. And then? I burned him away to ash. The old man leaned forward, placing his elbows on his knees. What a mess, he murmured. There was no mess. Not really, Amanda said. It broke like clay, and there was nothing inside. He was hollow. A true vessel, the old man whispered. A creature of Valfreya. What does that mean? Amanda asked. I believe that it means that your coming here has made her stronger, the old man said. Amanda punched the doorframe out of frustration. What do I do? I can't instruct you on that, child, the old man said. I'm here now, Amanda declared. That you are, the old man murmured. That makes two of you now. And the more of you that come and linger, the stronger she will grow. Two of us? Amanda asked. You don't know the other, the old man replied. The one with the strange haircut and that rough attitude. Amanda stared at him. You have to know her now, if you don't already, the old man said. You might be Woden's eye, but she is Woden's champion. Lisa was huddled at the foot of the bed as Han drank from a hot mug of coffee. It was too late for coffee, he knew that, but he felt like he needed something to calm his nerves. His daughter kept ringing, but he didn't dare pick up, for fear of what he might say to her. Amanda had been gone for ages now, and neither Han nor Lisa was in the least bit inclined to look for her, not after all they had seen and after all that had happened. Han might have felt discomforted, but he hadn't the slightest notion of how Lisa was faring. She seemed lost in her own mind. Han picked up the local newspaper and attempted to read the stories, but the words went through his mind, and before they could process well, they were gone. He couldn't focus. He couldn't think straight. He had so many questions, so much anger, and even more regrets, but he could hardly voice them to Lisa. He needed to speak to Amanda, but there was no telling when she would be back, if she came back at all. This wasn't a first for her, In her last mission, Amanda had gone separate from the group of Alpha Team operatives to hunt down an Corp member that had been spying on them. She had taken the riskiest route, of course she had, but it also turned out to be the correct and successful route. She'd shot him dead, and from the look of his face, he hadn't quite been expecting it. Her predecessor, Dan Fisher, hadn't been a stranger to lone missions either. Han was beginning to think that perhaps he should have taken both of them more seriously. Of course, it would be stupid to admit that now, but he had quite deep regrets about coming to this haunted place. He couldn't expel the image of the broken clay skull from his mind. How long had Amanda and Dan had to live with visions and ideas like this without ever having told anyone? It was the most absurd thing he'd ever seen. His phone buzzed again, and he quickly declined Alina's call once more. He looked at the thing. He looked at the thing and decided to make a call to Briar. He sat there waiting for her to pick up. The ringing tone hit his mind like a gong as his impatience grew. After it went to voice message, he tried calling her again and again and again and again for what seemed like the 100th time. He sighed and decided reluctantly to leave a message. Briar, once you get the time to listen to this, he began, we'd just like you to know that we've made it to Bradley Wood. It's nothing like I expected, but it's everything Amanda had feared. We were met with little confrontation from Nilecorp, but there are strange things here. Things I don't understand, things I can't explain. Amanda was right about it all. We should never have come here. Not without more intelligence, not without a larger force, with the right tools to figure this out. He paused and gulped down a whimper. I believe this might be my last mission, and if it is, I want you to tell my daughter everything. Everything I was, everything I am. I want you to tell her that I love her. Slap. The phone flew out of Han's hand and clattered to the ground as Lisa slapped it away. Stop that, she said, ending the message and whirling towards him. You've done this all your life, and you're going to skulk away from a fucking clayhead, she asked him, her fists clenched and her eyes watering. I'm not going to let Amanda think that this has got the best of me, and you better do the same. We asked to come here. Why are we the ones regretting it? Why has Amanda jumped to the fucking task of holding our hands and leading us like kids? Lisa bared her teeth. Stop writing your will and start being what you're oh so eager to prove to everyone else. Yes, Amanda has magical powers that force her to know things before anyone else does, but you're the god-shitting leader of Alpha Team. So stop your goddamn moping. You're acting like you were the one that got bitten on the head by the fucking demon. This is not within my line of work. Gobsmacked as he was, Han attempted to protest. This is nonsense. Oh, boo fucking who for you. Not within your line of work. You're telling that to me. Tell that to Amanda. We were dragged into this world where you chose it, Lisa pointed out. You're going to start complaining now? Coward. Fat-headed hypocrite. Lisa, Han sighed. I don't expect you to understand, but I don't deal with paranormal... Well, Amanda told you, didn't she? I don't need you rubbing that in my face along with her, Han shouted. He panted and stood up. He hadn't even realized he'd jumped out of his seat and knocked it over. I think your face needs a good rub in the muck, Lisa sneered. You've been a lapdog for so long, you've forgotten what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And what exactly do you think I'm supposed to be doing, Lisa? Han challenged her. Oh, I don't know, Lisa spat, getting her fiery face as close to Han's as she could. Saving the world? Protecting it from the clutches of evil? Making a better planet for your daughter? I believe it's something along those lines, she snorted. You know, when all this fuckshit nonsense started, I thought Amanda was the one that was overreacting. But since we got here, she's the one that's taking it upon herself to actually do something. All you do is drive and ask questions. Forgotten already that you nearly got eaten by a monster because of Amanda, have you? Han retorted. Well, that would mean Amanda and the rookie have both accomplished more than you have. I'm trying to read a story here. There was a knock at the door that cut them both short. Not that it mattered. Amanda was already inside and had only noticed to knock to get their heated attention. She took a swig from the bottle in her hand and looked at them, both with little interest. Nice place you found here, she commented, warm and homely. How long have you been standing there? Lisa asked, her cheeks flushing red. Long enough, Amanda sighed, raising a paper bag that smelt of freshly baked goods. One blueberry muffin for Andy and one cinnamon roll for you, Han. Han watched her as she dumped the paper bag between them and wandered off near the bed. She was muddy from what looked like her tumble in the forest. Her hair was windswept and unkempt, and she held Han's phone in her hands. Why haven't you spoken to Alina? Amanda asked him. Han shrugged. I don't want to I don't want to stress her out, and I'm too on end to appear calm. She'd calm you, Amanda told him, tossing the phone to him. He caught it with one hand and looked back at Amanda. If she calls again, and you don't want to talk to her still, Amanda continued, let me talk to her. She just wants to hear your voice, make sure we're all right. She looked towards Lisa and held up the bottle. Local stuff. It's really sweet, she said. Want a taste? Lisa squinted at her with a suspicious eye. If I like it, are you going to go off on a philosophical tangent as to why I like it? Amanda scoffed. No, she said, passing the bottle to Lisa. I'm too tired for any more of that. Any more of anything. I just want a warm bath and a strong drink. You definitely look like you need some kind of bath, Han commented. Oh, and you smell like roses, Amanda returned. Did you find who you were looking for? Han asked her. Amanda nodded and yawned. We'll talk about it in the morning. I've had enough of today. The rest of the evening was calm, perhaps even pleasant. Amanda had her shower, and the innkeepers were very generous with their strong drinks. Lisa made friends among some of the travelers, few, and the locals, many, and Han was able to still his nerves. He managed to get through a few books he'd brought with him and read a few newspapers. There were some small articles reporting the missing peoples that the locals claimed had been consumed by the Black Lady of Bradley Wood, but nothing major, nothing like they had seen. He was looking past those articles to articles that might hint towards Nile Corp activity. That was his focus. That was his target. That was his reason for being here. So long as he remembered that, he could try not to be so dumbfounded by what was more Amanda's specialty. She was in the room, tipsy and merry, but she didn't speak to him. She was fiddling with a game on her phone and cursing every time she lost. Han's phone began to buzz, and he managed to smile as he realized it was his daughter calling him again. This time he picked the call up and put the phone to his ear. Hello? He said into the microphone. For a moment there was no reply. Hello, Alina? He said again, wondering if the signal was bad or if she was cross with him. Is that Alina? Amanda asked him. Let me speak to her. Wait, Amanda whispered to her, gesturing with a hand to stop pawing at his phone. Alina, he said again. Alina, are you there? There was a pause. Amanda, through her befuddlement, heard a voice talk from the other side, but it wasn't Alina's. Han was stricken. His face went white as a sheet. Where is she? He asked, quietly and slow. The strange voice spoke again. It made Amanda want to rip the phone from Han's hands and talk herself. If you hurt her, Han began to say, but was abruptly stopped by the voice that became more and more sinister with every moment. He put the phone down. They have my girl, Han said. Nilecorp have my daughter. That's chapter 13. How are we doing? Stream's a bit empty compared to the last few episodes. Maybe the story is getting a little intense. So Andy Fleming asked, what is the story about? So it's a story I wrote in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I started it in 2016 and it was updated as late as 2018. And it is all based around secret societies, the paranormal, and yeah, just all of that stuff. It's going to be kind of difficult to get into at this point because we're 13 chapters in. We're currently on chapter 14 right now. So if you wanted to start from the beginning, you can watch the previous streams. But yeah, that's the whole gist of the story. I really don't want to spoil it. Ishtiaq Hussein says, oh, also welcome Ish. Faye has fantastic enunciation. She would make a great ESL teacher. I would make a terrible teacher. Authority gets to my head. I would make an awful teacher. Um, Andy Fleming says, "I'm asking, are these stories are going to be on English textbook of children who are junior in class?" Um, this is a story that I wrote. This is not a published like novel. This is just a story that I wrote quite a while back. But yeah, I'm hoping that at least you guys are enjoying it. Um, so yeah. Welcome, Ryan. I hope you're well as well. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you know what's going on here, because I feel like quite a few people in the stream are a little bit confused as to what's going on. But I'm reading an old story of mine. We're currently on chapter 14, so it might be a little difficult to get into now, but feel free to stick around if you want to, do something else, that's fine too. But I'm just here to hang out. This is one of my chillest streams throughout the week, and I actually really, really enjoy doing it, and I really, really savor it. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to stick around. Yeah, um, but I do hope that you will, because I thoroughly enjoy these streams. But anyways, uh, chapter 14. We're on to chapter 14. If you, by the way, if you're enjoying the story, if you are not subscribed, please feel free to like and subscribe if you want. I do a plethora of content. The uploads from the last 2 days have been very intense in terms of editing and filming, and I'm kind of exhausted. So that's why, I always resolve to do a very light stream on a Sunday, because it's just a day of rest. So yeah, that's what we're doing. But feel free to like and subscribe, check out my other content if you don't like this. Paul says, when you read it, you have a tone that fits the narration. Not sure if people will have it when they read. My voice sounds more manly. I don't know. I've always liked reading my stories out loud, because I can hear what works and what doesn't work. So that's kind of why I've kind of decided to do this. Also, this is a story that doesn't have an end yet, so I'm thinking about ending it and figuring out how to end it. So yeah, there's that. But continuing, we're on chapter 14. This was all a mistake, a horrible mistake. It should never have happened, it should never have happened, it should never have happened. But then, he could never have seen it happening. Why? How was it possible? It had started with the ransom message. Alina was captured at a secure location where they were waiting for him. He had 24 hours to get there and hand himself in, or it would be over for Alina. Alina, his sweet daughter. Alina, his innocent baby girl. His thoughts raced in his mind, clogged his logic with like a filthy ball of stray hairs. Where had he gone wrong? How had they gotten to her? How could he have let this happen? It was Amanda who had knocked his senses back to him, and as they settled, he tried to tell himself, he begged himself to pay attention to the task at hand. She's not your daughter, Amanda barked, shaking his shoulders, her mouth centimeters from his face. Not now, not like this. She's a girl we have to save, that's all she is. But, was all Han could mumble. But she pulled him close and whispered, you have to keep your wits, Han. They left Lisa at the inn, distraught as she was, and hired a car. Amanda drove. Han was too shaken to manage it, and they raced down the winding roads. Amanda tried to instruct Han's panicked mind what to prepare, what to be ready for, how to handle the situation. 2 silenced pistols, he heard her. Be ready for a fight, hand to hand. This whole thing stinks, Amanda muttered to herself a few times along the journey. Reeks! What are they trying to get at? The car ground to a halt after what seemed like a million years. But that moment, those precious moments before they entered the warehouse where the girl was being held, felt even longer. Han couldn't wait to jump out and rush in, guns ablaze. Amanda put a hand on his arm and reached for her silenced pistol. She tucked it away in her back pocket and covered it up with her loose shirt. You're going to drown in your own sweat from the look of it, she said. Do you want to stay here? I can handle this. Han wiped the sweat from his forehead and neck with a shaking hand. No, his voice croaked. No, I have to go with you. Amanda stared up at him, her face twitching with worry. If you can't handle this like an agent, you need to stay here. She pressed her lips into a thin line. If you can't handle this like an agent, you'll cock it all up. Han in cursed in his head and scowled. I've been doing this longer than you have. Yeah, she nodded, rigid and icy, but not like this. You don't under began Han began to snap. Don't tell me I don't understand, Amanda snapped instead. I love that girl as much as you do, and I am not going to lose my mind, and you best not either. She opened the car door, and before slamming it shut, she muttered, Fuck knows you've little of it as it is. Not sure if that made sense. Han let out an angry sigh and stuffed his own gun into his inside jacket pocket, and stepped out as well. Amanda walked with her hands in her pockets, strolling slowly down the narrow paving. Cars and vans passed them by as she walked. Han caught up with her with little effort. His head was burning with anger, like a fire that was cracking and popping, and only growing with every moment he felt wasted. You aiming to get to her tomorrow? He scolded through his teeth at Amanda. Amanda looked at him and smiled, but said with equal anger, Are you trying to get us noticed? I eyes jerked over in the direction of something off to their right, and jerked back to look at him in an instant. Han didn't look over. Of course he didn't. He wasn't that stupid. But he sighed and clenched his fists. I hate this. You know I hate this, he murmured to her. I know, Amanda replied. I know. They passed the corner without looking around too much and reached the entrance of the warehouse. Amanda didn't deign to knock. She noticed that the doors were unlocked and let herself in, and Han scurried in after her. The doors shut on them. It was dark inside. Han made out the shapes of different sized crates and boxes piled in a disorganized yet purposeful fashion in the darkness. He could see the outlines of machinery and the structures of scaffolds and pillars holding everything together. Amanda said nothing, did nothing. She just waited. She always hung back. She always waited. Han never had her patience. He made plans and carried them through as soon as he could. Amanda went with her strange, abnormal flow and hoped it worked. She always played the long game. Han reached into his coat and pulled out his gun. We're here, he said into the blackness, and paying some mind to Amanda's advice, continued, We're here, give us the captive. Shadows melted out of the black and came forward. They walked in unison, hands clasped out in front of them, their persons covered in thick hooded cloaks, the color of hard shit. Han glanced over at Amanda. She made no move. This is an exchange, Agent Schmidt, spoke one of them, solemn and monotonous. I will not simply give you your daughter. The one who had spoken stepped slightly closer to them than the others. I see you have brought us our sweet turncoat. It nodded, Han thought, in Amanda's direction. How do you know me? How do you know it's me? Amanda asked them. You can't see me. I don't need to, it said. I can smell a traitor from a mile away. Amanda scoffed. Most of your traitors are dead or too far for you to smell. I'm neither one of those. It didn't reply to her comment. It nodded at one of its companions, and the companion shone a lit torch on the small, shivering figure of a girl tied up and gagged, her eyes tearful and scared. Han gulped down a sob as Alina's panicked, muffled voice screamed for her father. The cloaked beings didn't move. It didn't faze them. Amanda stared on with the same unflinching, unwavering gaze. This is low, even for you, Han spat at the beings. It isn't, Amanda replied to him. This is how they play, hiding in the shadows, playing at it like frightened children. Han raised his gun. What do you want? He asked them. The leader amongst them raised its covered head and said, You. Han felt a sharp pain, as fast and as painful as a whip crack, seared into the back of his neck, and he fell to his hands and knees, and an arm wrapped around his throat, and he dug into his spine, and the cold circle barrel of a gun pressed against his temple. His own gun tumbled to the ground and plinked as it hit the solid concrete. Off in the near distance, Alina screamed, but he could hardly hear it over the sound of his own pumping blood. The world, this dark world, was a horrible blur, and that iron arm coiled around his jugular made him gasp for air. Well, he heard it. This is a surprise. Look who wants a place back into the fold. A cruel and yet familiar voice had a grin to it when it said, "I never left." She spat in front of him. Idiots. "Insolent," it replied to her. Han made an effort to claw at Amanda's arm and rasped his anger in dribbled whispers. Effective, Amanda retorted to it. "I suppose you expect me to release the girl?" it asked her for a brief pause. Amanda yanked Han to his feet, her arm holding him by the throat, took his gun from the floor and shoved it into her back pocket. "Do you need her?" Amanda asked. If you think that I'm about to accept you as a," it began. "What, a sister?" she said, looking directly into his face. "Don't matter which coat I turn, blood tells. I'll always be your sister, Andrew, a shit sister, but a sister still." It held its silence for a while, a sour, childish silence, before it told her, "You knew all this time." "I've been watching you for years," Amanda sneered, "following you on every obscured web page, every discredited newspaper article, everywhere, every when, every how." She was so close to him, Amanda could see the scowl on his face, even in the lack of light. "You left us," Andrew rasped. Amanda shrugged. "I was curious. You were in love. We saw it all, heard it all. And then you killed one of ours, after you broke bread with him and became his friend," Andrew told her. "The Triad will never forgive you." Amanda laughed, a good hearty laugh. "I think that's for the Triad to decide, not you." "What if we decide to kill you now?" Andrew asked her. "Ifs and buts aren't going to kill anything," Amanda returned. "You don't scare me." It was an instant, but it was enough. She turned her gun on the hooded men and fired at them in turn. They took sweet time by her measurement to scatter, 4 of them falling to her bullets like fools over tripwire. Amanda threw Han to the ground and pulled the second gun from her back pocket and shot whatever moved. Andrew was the only one that remained in front of her, frozen to the spot by either stubbornness or fear. It was hard to tell. "You think I'm stupid?" Amanda asked, stepping closer to him. "You think I don't know the Triad would never send you to run an errand as great as this? This is too big for your boots, Andrew." Andrew held his place, his face barely trembling, as she moved closer to him. He said nothing. "Oh, my ever-devout little brother," Amanda spat, "always prepared to die for the cause." She pressed one gun to his forehead and the other to his stomach. "There are 2 ways to die, quick and slow. Give me a quick answer, and I'll give you what you've always wanted. What did you want with the girl?" Andrew pulled down his hood. Amanda stared at his face. She was as defiant as he was, unmoving, unflinching, unafraid. His face had aged in the 10 years since she'd last laid eyes on him. His hair, which had been a beautiful blonde once, had become a disgusting murky brown mess from filth and lack of sunlight. But the most jarring difference, Amanda saw, was his lack of a nose. Nile Corp always took something, and Andrew had given his nose. His pale, freckly nose. "That filth that poisoned you," he said to her. "That evil, malignant fool that put the notions of love and warmth in your mind has poisoned you, and he lives in you. To turn away is one thing. We didn't give chase. We didn't bother. But to kill one of our own, Amanda." Amanda lost her stillness. She smacked the man down as if he was still a little boy, and pointed both her guns at him. "Yours took him from me," she said, kicking him in the side. "He was mine," she screamed, "and I was his." Amanda sat on Andrew's chest and punched his bleeding, mutilated face. "And now the barrier between life and death is between us. Yours raised the barrier. Yours took what was mine, and I only give back what I felt was due." "You're pitiful," Andrew stared, his mouth burbling blood from his lips and gums. Amanda got up and lifted the man by the collar. "Revenge is a right of everyone, isn't it, Andrew?" she asked him, panting. Andrew stood on his shaking feet. "Betrayal isn't," he said. "Tell me why you wanted the girl," Amanda asked again, dropping her guns and bunching his cloak in her fists. Andrew kicked her in the stomach. And the triad wanted blood, he said. Amanda folded and tossed him to the ground, holding her torso. Her blood? Blood for blood, loss for loss, Andrew snapped, rather quickly, withdrawing as Amanda recovered. Amanda laughed. Little brother trying to play a small part in this big plan, is he? She shouted. But he'd already faded away. She looked around. Han was staring at her, hardly daring to move, and Alina was weeping softly where Nilecorp had left her. Amanda sighed, angry, frustrated, and depressed, and hauled the girl to her feet. She hurried her out and left Han responsible for his own safety. They trudged back to the hired car and got in. Amanda sat in the back with Alina and left Han to drive, not caring that he didn't really want to. Alina didn't speak, not for a long time as they drove. She just cried. Amanda untied her slowly, starting with the dirty bandage that had been wrapped around her mouth. It had been so coarse and tight that the material had left harsh marks at the corners of Alina's mouth. Amanda unbound her hands, and the rope leaving Alina's wrists raw and painful. Han parked the car, he had to, overwhelmed as he was, and leaned against the steering wheel. He moaned as he cried, trying not to make a sound, wishing his own daughter not to hear his sobs, wishing she'd never been taken to begin with. It only made Alina bawl anew. But Amanda couldn't blame either of them. She cradled Alina in her arms and rocked slowly, surprised by her own cold numbness, her inability to feel anything. She kept swallowing and looking around and forgot the words she thought she knew. I want to feel, Amanda told herself. I want to feel. Why can't I feel? A tear gathered in her eye for a second before it was forgotten, and it receded, and she was numb again. No wonder she wants me, she mumbled to herself. I'm already half an empty shell. No one heard her, though, not Alina and not Han. After the pair had calmed a little, Amanda let herself out of the car and breathed the fresh air. She wanted to sully it with tobacco smoke. She wanted to clog her mind with narcotics and drown her memory in a number of strong pints. She heard Han leave the driver's seat, shut the door, and run to the back to hold his daughter. She could hear them crying and apologizing and telling each other how afraid they had been. The night was black, and the English sky hid the stars, hid the moon. There was only darkness up there. Was there only darkness in her? If she dashed her head, would it crack like clay? Would she fall to dust, empty and dry? Sometimes when she slept, she dreamt of him, of Dan, and it was so vivid she felt it a reality. She woke with the urge to tell everyone that Dan was alive and well, and there had been a huge mistake. The doctors had got it wrong. He'd survived. He was strong and he'd survived. And for the long second after she woke, Amanda would believe it, and she would be filled with a warmth, a wave of warm happiness. The second of realization that followed was 100 times longer. The anger and sadness after that would last her entire day, or the numbness. Stupid, she cursed angrily. Stupid, 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 idiot, dumb, insolent, fool of a fucking idiot. Amanda balled her hands into fists and pressed them against her forehead. There was a pain behind her eyes, searing and pulsing. She sat down on the ground and let her head rest against the cold metal of the car door. She shut her eyes and let the gentle cold wind brush against her face, play with her hair. If she rested long enough, the wind would feel like soft caresses. Her rest was interrupted by the sound of the car door on the opposite side opening and shutting. She heard heavy footsteps weave around the cars and draw nearer to her. Amanda tossed her head in the direction of the sound and looked at Han standing in front of her with lazy, drained eyes. He was rubbing the back of his neck where she had struck him. Angry, are you? She asked him, raising her eyebrows. Just slightly. Han pursed his lips and sat down next to her. Yes, he confirmed, but I understand why it had to be done. A warning would have been appreciated. Amanda looked away from him and commented, so you could cock it up with your shit acting. She managed a small scoff. Sorry. But your daughter's safe. How is she holding up? Hans sighed and looked at his feet. She's terrified. Amanda nodded. You should stay with her, for now. She was asking too many questions. Hans shook his head and rubbed the back of his neck with the small motions of his palm. I don't know what to tell her. Don't tell her what you are. Amanda snapped, not looking at him, only straight ahead, at all the nothing ahead of her. How can I possibly cover this up, Amanda? Do you want Alina to be drawn into this wretched life? Of course not, but then don't tell her anything, Amanda snapped again, glancing over at Han. She has to go home and you with her. Han paused. But the mission. If you don't go home, they'll keep attacking Alina in one way or another, Amanda tried to explain. Nile Corp isn't well resourced, so they wouldn't go to all this trouble without some benefit from both you and Alina. For whatever reason, they want you both. And if I know my brother he wasn't lying about it having to do with blood, what does that mean? What would they want with blood? I don't know just yet, Amanda lied. She had some ideas of what it might be, but she wanted to leave Han out of it. But I don't want you to wait around to find out. Han looked disappointed and, more than that, sad. Amanda, how are you going to fight all this alone? I'm not, Amanda said, just not with you. I think Lisa has seen enough as well. You never call her that. I should, now that I know where Andy is and he's still around. Han was silent for a cold moment. That must be difficult for you. Men were made to suffer, Amanda recited. I feel like there's a part of me that still believes that. What is it? It's the mantra of Nalcorp, Amanda told him. Only when he dies is he unburdened and suffers no more. I always wondered how true that last part was. Han scoffed at her remark, but he was full of questions. He didn't know how to phrase them. Andrews knows Nile takes something from you as a rite of passage, Amanda murmured, in awfully textbook fashion. They take blood as initiation and a member once they deem you fit. Did they take anything from you? Han asked, scared and rather tentative. Amanda said nothing for a minute. She stared ahead of her, watching flecks of dust dance in the dim, synthetic light of street lamps. They took everything from me, she said, her quiet monotone deafening and jarring. Han shivered at her sadness, and in his own strange sense of fear, he felt in danger all of a sudden. Of what he was unsure. The pain at the back of his neck burned, and he was reminded of how quickly Amanda acted and how precise she was. Han had been afraid of her since the day they'd met, but he'd refused to dwell on the thought until now. Amanda stood up and brushed the dirt from her bottom. She sighed and watched her breath cloud in front of her. I'll talk to Alina, Amanda told him. She turned her head towards him, staring at him with pale, expressionless eyes. I'll tell her a story she might believe, so you and her can go home, and I can finish this mess. Han rose, looking suspicious and worried, and asked, What will you tell her? Don't worry about it, Amanda reassured him, with a forced smile. We've all had a long day. Do you mind finding us something, or some place to eat? Han gazed at her for a moment, not fully trusting Amanda. He tried telling himself that she'd helped to save Alina, that Amanda cared and loved Alina, and that Amanda meant no harm on his daughter. He swallowed his grievances and said, I'll find us some food and some good, strong drinks for after we get back to the inn. Amanda nodded. She watched Han fiddle with the maps on his phone, and she watched as he walked off, following the tiny voice from his phone that spouted directions. Amanda got into the car and shut the door. Alina, who had been fiddling with her own phone, or Han's second phone perhaps, looked up as the older woman entered. Amanda noted her fright. I think it's time we spoke, Amanda said. Alina hesitated. She looked down at her phone screen and fiddled a little more, not responding to Amanda's comment. Amanda sighed internally, but tried to keep her face neutral on the outside. I'm sure your brain's buzzing with questions, Amanda added. Alina froze. The sentence seemed to pique her curiosity a little, but she was still afraid. Of course she was. She'd just experienced the most traumatic moment of her life. Amanda continued. Your dad's a little hesitant of answering your questions. He thinks you'll think less of him, or that you simply just won't accept him anymore. But I'll answer all your questions. I think it's important for you to know. Alina trembled slightly as she sat up. She didn't look at Amanda, not at first. She spoke in quiet, shaken tones. Where is he? Did he go somewhere? She asked. Amanda didn't make eye contact with the young girl. He went to get us food. He just needs time to think. Alina sniffed. She waited a heartbeat before she whispered, "You killed them." "I had to," Amanda told her. "They would have taken us all if I didn't." "But you did it so quickly," Alina blurted, her eyes tearing up. She rubbed her wrists against the corners of her eyes. "You did it without thinking, without waiting. None of them shot back." "They weren't there to fight because they weren't supposed to be there," Amanda said, firm and unapologetic. "Am I wrong to say so, in saying so?" "I don't know," Alina whimpered, her words coming out quickly in sobs and tears. "I don't know anything. I don't know why they wanted me. I don't know why they wanted Dad. I don't know why they were doing what they wanted, what they wanted, why I was important. They locked me up in a cold place and covered my eyes and covered my ears and tied dirty stuff around my mouth so that I couldn't speak." All right," Amanda said gently. "All right." Lena sniffed and gulped. "Have you always been a killer?" Amanda gazed at her, angry, so very angry at the girl's accusations, but she tried to hide it. "Not always, no," Amanda replied. Alina sucked in her cheeks. "Do you know why they wanted me?" she asked her. "They tied you up because they wanted to get to your dad." Amanda told her. "Your dad's a very rich man." "Is he like you?" Alina moaned. "Is he a killer?" "Yes," Amanda wanted to say. "He's been a killer for much longer than me." "No," is what came out of her mouth instead. "You know what your dad is. He's a tradesman, a big business owner, with lots of important meetings to go to and lots of important people to host." "I thought I knew what you were," Amanda pointed out, refusing to look at Amanda. "I work with special forces," Amanda said, her voice becoming more and more harsh with every brittle comment that Alina made. "I work with him to keep him safe. Though not for long, not after this." "Good," Alina sniffed. "I guess I won't have to see you again after this." Amanda ground her teeth in passive rage. How is that fair? She asked herself. "I thought you would have been a bit more grateful," Amanda said, "after saving your life, after saving your father's life." Amanda couldn't see the look on Lena's face, but heard her tone when she said, "I wish I'd never known you." It was a blow. It was like being shot and then not realizing until you looked down and saw the blood oozing out of you. Amanda could feel her insides turn at the words. She felt her mind cloud over with only words of contempt. "Well," Amanda murmured. "Fuck you, then, Alina." Alina turned around and gaped. Amanda didn't take it back. She got out of the car and slammed the door behind her. "I raised that girl," Amanda cursed, burning with hatred on the inside. "I raised that fucking girl. I cared for her, I watched out for her, and she fucking hates me?" Amanda turned and kicked the car, pulling at her hair. "Why do I bother? So she and Han and that ugly, stupid cow of a stepmother can have a nice, normal life. I should have told her the fucking truth." Amanda panted, her breath clouding like smoke around her. Men were made to suffer. Amanda pulled out her phone, briefly noticing her battery was on the verge of dying, and texted Han. "Don't buy food for me. I'm leaving. Alina's safe in the car. I'm going to continue with the mission. Don't come after me. Get the first plane home and tell everyone at the compound that you can't risk the safety of your family and that I'm handling things here." She sent that message, but her anger and frustration wouldn't allow her to stop there. "I've told Alina the story. Don't muddle it. It's fine as it is. Not going to be around yours for a while after this. She really is your daughter." She noticed that Han was typing already in response. Amanda didn't want his response. She held down the red button on her phone and waited for it to shut down. She took one last look at Alina through the car window. Amanda could see that she was crying into her hands once more, not looking up even for a moment. Amanda huffed, stood straight, and walked off with her hands in her pockets without looking back once. And that's chapter 14. What did you guys think? How are we doing? Are we keeping up? Are we good? Um, Andy Fleming asks, how many years takes a story to be written, Faye? Mm, To be fair, I used to be able to write stories really fast because the muse kind of hits me and then it leaves quite quickly, so I needed to get it out very, very quickly. So it takes a hot minute, I would say, to write a story to fruition, but sometimes it really depends how quickly it hits you. I've written stories in a week. I've taken years to write a story. It really, really depends. Um, Dear Dad is in the chat. Um, First Atheist has joined us. Welcome. Shane Wilson is in the chat. Welcome. Um, uh, yeah, how are you guys doing? How is everyone? How is everyone coping? I don't know if I should end it now. We've gone 2 chapters, but they're 2 very long chapters. But I'm frankly quite tired, and I might just end it here. Um, it gets a little bit more interesting because, well, I'm not gonna say anything, but we're nearing. So we're on chapter 15 now, and I've only written a total of 17 chapters. So the next stream might be the last and final stream. So yeah, and then it will be a challenge of finishing the story and reading the ending. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the story so far. If you like the stream, please do leave a like, leave some comments, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, you know what to do. Um, how do you prep a story? I think different people have different ways of prepping a story. Sometimes I it really depends. If you set it in a fantasy world, then you'd need to imagine what that world would contain, how that world would function, the kind of people that exist there, the kind of animals that exist there, the kind of nations and politics that are around that whole situation. It really, really does depend. You've asked a follow-up question, like, do you do any background reading, build characters, plan story arcs? So I do a lot of character planning for sure. I do a lot of character planning, especially when I decide to introduce a new character. Before writing anything about them, I will do like a little mind map of what that character is like in terms of personality, what they look like, what they strive for. In terms of background reading, if I'm writing something more historically based, like I have a story around the Black Plague. I have a story around piracy, like the golden age of piracy. I have a story around Vikings and the sack of Lindisfarne. I would do background research around those things, but typically not really. Not really, because a lot of my writing is very fantastical. For this specific story, I had to do some background research about the Black Lady of Bradleywood, which is actually a thing that people have reported before. Um, I've had to research a little into Bradley as a town and what it looks like and what the wood is known for, particularly. I've had to research a little bit into like Germanic gods like Valfreya and Woden and all of those kinds of gods. I had to look into a little, but yeah, that's more or less about it. Maybe the next time I decide to write a story, I will go through the process of like mind mapping it and things like that because there seems to be some interest in it. But thank you guys for joining me in this live stream. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had a good time to just spend some time reading some stories with me. I will be back next week, possibly with the finale. Well, not technically the finale because I need to finish the story, but with the finale as it stands. And yeah, it's been a wonderful journey, and maybe next story that we'll read is something completely different. There are plenty of stories that I've written that are completely unfinished, and maybe in this live stream or in the next one, you can actually tell me how you think the story should end, because I really couldn't decide, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't finish it. But yeah, thank you guys for coming out, and I will see you tomorrow, most likely. Goodbye.